what happens when you sit with direct experience? We will revisit this question later, but what happens to it?
It changes.
It changes, because everything changes. It's just that we're not used to usually sitting with it long enough for it to change. Remember how we talked about in the previous module, emotions are just energy? We're the ones that say, oh, that is sadness, or that is anger, that is desire, that is, you know, whatever it is. So when we build a container through pratyahara, the emotion changes, and then we get to say, oh, what I thought was anger maybe is not. Maybe it's something else. What I thought was desire for, let's say, this relationship to happen, I have to make it happen. I'm going to do everything I can to get this person to like me. And oh my God, they haven't emailed me back. What's wrong? They hate me. Oh my God, I need to do something else. And we can spend a lot of time in that place. And that's desire, right? But then if we sit with that desire, what could it possibly turn into? Oh, I don't have this person. They have to move toward me, therefore I don't have them. Therefore I'm alone. Oh my God, I'm alone. I'm alone. I've been abandoned. And that's a really primal thing. And then if we sit with that long enough, what could that turn into?
Fear.
Fear, did you say fear?
Yeah.
Fear? You're just throwing them all in there.
Or just, you know, I guess you would add to the story in the sense, but it's not, you know, maybe they just haven't seen it or they're busy. It's not about me.
It's not
it's
about
okay.
me is going to be one of the themes of this little module. It could turn into fear. And then that fear, when is the time when we feel alone?
Right before falling asleep.
Yeah. Okay. So there could be sort of that quietness in there. If you're in a conversation with someone and both people have stopped talking, what happens?
There's an energy. I'm totally one of those people that is not good with silence in big conversations. And so like sitting with that energy of like the expectation for either one of you to say something and just being okay with that, like just because nobody's saying anything doesn't mean there's no interest. Like,
yes. So maybe abandonment and aloneness could morph into the feeling of quiet, stillness,
Solitude.
solitude. One of my mentors had written something about how we all have this primal experience of fear when we start to feel that we're separate from everything. And it only takes that one experience for us to bring that difficulty with solitude with us everywhere we go, and the fear of abandonment and people don't like me. And then we can tell 100,000 stories about it. But in the end, sitting with aloneness could be sitting with your own presence. We just don't do that enough to feel what our presence feels like. Right? Do you know what your presence feels like? And if you have a small idea, how can you build upon that through the practices of yoga? Because it does take a lot of stuff to kind of like keep cleansing out, the mind stuff. You know, you have to get from desire to the fear, to the abandonment, to the I'm alone. And you have to be willing to sit with all that, through that, and then you feel the silence, and then you're like, oh, have you ever been in a church that's empty? Visited a church or been in a church, and there's this incredible, deep, sort of vibrational sense? What if sitting with yourself were like that kind of presence? Because in non-dual reality of yoga, we are not so very different from that divine presence. We just think we are, so we put all this layer of stuff on top of it. So the next time you're having a difficult direct experience, and it doesn't have to be like a 3-hour restorative yoga practice in one sitting. It can happen over time. Just keep staying with whatever it is. Lean into it. As Pema often says, lean into it and then see what experience comes after that. And then what comes after that if you're willing to let it change. And so that you do get to that deep self. Who knew we were going to take pratyahara and go so philosophical? But I think it's important to lay this out because in a yoga practice that is therapeutic, there are many, many junctures in which we cultivate pratyahara. We teach ourselves to breathe with and be present with our direct experience, physically, mentally, emotionally, and otherwise.